is Architecture 360 on Rivet Radio. I'm Lee Bay. Chicago's Aon Center is in the news. The city's third tallest building is expected to go up for sale soon, and it might fetch as much as $650 million. And get this, under new ownership, the upper floors of the 83-story office tower might be converted to condos. The Aon Center, cold and remote, is Chicago's least liked and most forgotten skyscraper, attributes it'll have to change architecturally in order to get people to live there. Here's architect Ward Miller, Executive Director of Preservation Chicago.
It's a tough one. You know, Aon, I think, has got a couple image problems with it. First of all, it's kind of isolated. I think one of the things is it never really had an observatory. So, you know, the public has never really been engaged with it.
The Aon Center on Architecture 360. I spent 6 years working in the Aon building from 2007 to 2013, and I was there about 3 months before I noticed something. The building was never included on any architecture tours. Now, I'm not talking about inside, because getting inside buildings of any import has been a hassle since 9/11. I mean outside. No groups led by docents standing on the sidewalk, no buses filled with architecture enthusiasts waiting to learn more about the building. Nothing. Now, for a building that's a major visual landmark in Chicago and designed by an architect of note, that says something. Completed in 1972 as the Standard Oil building, the Aon was briefly the tallest building in Chicago. It was the fourth tallest building in the world back then, right behind the World Trade Center towers and the Empire State Building. Then the Sears Tower opened in 1974, and it became the world's tallest building until 1998. Edward Durrell Stone designed the Aon. He clad the structure in the Carrara marble from Italy, and the narrow windows formed vertical slips that ran the height of the building, giving the rectangular box the profile of a fluted column. But in a town that likes its skyscrapers, tall, dark, and glassy, think of the superlative John Hancock building or the Daly Center, the Aon was visually an outlier. It looked like something you might see, say, in Houston, rather than downtown Chicago. In 1974, Paul Gapp, the Chicago Tribune's architecture critic at the time, said the building was, quote, the worst thing that had happened to Chicago's skyline in 30 years. And on top of that, until the 1990s, it sat there almost all alone on Randolph Street, east of Michigan, with an awkward entrance that requires you to walk down a level from the street, cross a big open plaza with a fountain in it just to get into the building. Then there was this. In 1985, when the building was barely more than a decade old, its marble skin started cracking and pulling away from the structure. Standard Oil, then renamed Amoco, had to then reskin the entire exterior in a look-alike white granite. It took 2 years and $80 million. Amoco sold the building in 1998. A few years later, the tower was renamed Aon Center when the insurance giant Aon became a main tenant of the building. So if a building like this needs fixing, how do you do it? How do you change the architecture in a way to draw a new clientele and maybe an architecture tour or two? Ward Miller.
Standard Oil, as I still call it, could use kind of a restoration idea for its plaza with maybe a clean entry that wouldn't take away from the building.
Yeah, but what might that look like?
You know, maybe it's a glass pavilion that doesn't have, you know, all this special detailing and treatment that just puts it over the top. And I really do think it probably does need a good restaurant or a club that would draw people in. And, you know, the views from up there would really be marvelous. I'd really love to see that building re-engaged and the public engaged in it. And I think with all the new hotels and development that's happened in Illinois Center, there's a real possibility for that.
That wraps this edition of Architecture 360 for now. In the meantime, let's stay together. Friend me on Facebook at Lee Bay's Chicago and follow me under my name on Twitter. Thanks for listening.